Hi there, Steve Kaufman here. Today I want to talk about what to do when you get frustrated in your language learning. It's a subject that comes up all the time. Before I get to that though, I just want to tell you that I have a very pleasant duty tonight. I'm judging I guess it's a beauty contest. It's Miss Chinese Vancouver. 10 Chinese Canadian girls from Vancouver who are competing for this Miss Chinese Vancouver title. And the winner will go on to a Miss Chinese International competition in Hong Kong. And so last week, I was one of 4 judges that got to interview these girls and have dinner with them. And today is a big gala event where they have to, show off different dresses, traditional Chinese dress, whatever. I think there's a swimsuit thing there as well. And I've got to kind of judge them out of 10. For their personality, who's most photogenic, who's answers questions well, and so forth and so on. And we get a nice dinner out of it. So yeah, I wouldn't have that opportunity if I didn't speak Cantonese and Mandarin. So there's another advantage to learning languages. But recently, I guess very often I get the question. People say, well, I've run out of motivation. I'm not motivated to learn anymore. What should I do? This comes up on our forum at Link from time to time. There was also a question on our forum. Someone who is a student, I think in Poland, was saying that her teacher, or her teacher, had asked for her she had to do a test where she has to identify whether words are formal, informal, colloquial, academic or whatever words. So I looked at these two things together and I thought to myself, I think when I did the videos, the 7 secrets to successful language learning, either number 1 or number 2 important secrets were do the things that you like to do. I think the second one is to spend the time. Okay, so those are the 2 big things. Because it comes back to the basic idea that language learning success depends on your attitude, largely, and on the amount of time you put in. Those are the 2 big factors. So, if you do things that you like doing, that you enjoy doing, you're likely to continue. And if you enjoy doing them, you aren't worried about whether you're meeting some arbitrary goal. I have to be fluent in 6 months, 3 months, 10 months. It doesn't matter. You enjoy doing what you're doing. So if I take the example of my Czech, for example, I have had 2 conversations now in Czech. I started Czech in early August. I've had 2 conversations with 2 of our native speakers at Link, and I did very poorly. I mean, struggling to find words. Either I didn't have the words, or in many cases I knew the words, but I couldn't recall them. But I don't find that in any way discouraging. Because what I do with my Czech, I thoroughly enjoy. I'm reading a book now, which is called, I've been at it for a while, Střední Evropa v dějinách. I've mentioned it before, I've been at it for a while. You probably can't see this, but when I read it, there's all kinds of words in there that I underline, which I don't know, and then I, in many cases, pump them into Link if I'm up to it, or I don't. But I have learned so much about the history of basically Eastern Central Europe, Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia. And I'm gathering more and more steam in my Czech learning. I enjoy it. It's a pleasure to go there. I also go to my iPad, and there I've got, again, I don't know if it's going to be visible or not, but here I've got, the good soldier Schweik. And you can see that there's lots of words that I don't know, and it's in iLink. So if I click on a word, it shows me the meaning. At the bottom, you'll see there's a sound bar. I can listen to it. I even have these things in a playlist so that I just go to it, and it's fun. I don't worry about how well I'm doing. And when I don't feel like doing it, I don't do it. But those are things that I enjoy doing. With my Russian now, I'm at the stage where I just listen in to Echo Moskvi because I want to hear the commentary about, the recent elections and things like that, but I don't listen to as much as I used to. But when I do listen, I know that all of my exposure to the language is improving me. So I'm not like that student in Poland who has to pass a test where, I have to identify which words are of this category or that category, formal or informal or colloquial. I can't imagine doing that because, first of all, we know that the vocabulary in most contexts is 80%, 70 to 80%, the most common words of the language. So it doesn't matter what the context is, informal, formal, academic, business, it's 80% the same words. So that reading those, exposing yourself to any content is going to be beneficial. I also feel that to identify a word as informal, formal, academic is very difficult, because if I say, in everything, all the words that I'm using in this presentation, this discussion, which is a fairly casual discussion but on a serious subject, all those words can be used in an informal situation, can be used in an academic paper. I think this Polish student said that her teacher told her, that she was not to use phrasal verbs in academic writing. And she was not to use long phrases like on the one hand, on the other hand in academic writing. Well, to me, writing is writing. Language is language. And the objective in writing is to be clear, simple, and straightforward, unless you're writing a poem or you're describing beautiful scenery. But in most of the articles that we write and most of our communication, we want to be simple and clear and straightforward. And that's true whether we're speaking or whether we're writing. So I don't see that all these big differences are all that meaningful. And if I want to get better at, say, academic writing, then I read more academic articles. But that'll only work if I'm interested in the subject. Very difficult to do. If you are going to try to become better at writing on veterinary science and you're not interested in veterinary science, you'll have a real tough time. But if you're very interested in that subject, or chemistry or computers or anything else, and you're reading that stuff all the time, you will naturally acquire the language, the terminology, the style that you need. So, if you stay with doing things that you enjoy doing and follow your interests, and your interests can move, and you'll go through periods where you're not so interested. And if you don't always have to look over your shoulder and say, gee, I need this for my test, or am I progressing fast enough, or don't worry about it. Like and that reminds me, I was with this other person, a Chinese person who has lived in Canada for over 10 years and doesn't speak English very well. And so I was trying to persuade them that they should really make an effort. And they said, yeah, but, I always forget. Well, of course you forget. Everybody forgets. I mean, the number of times, in my Czech history book here, that I underlined the very same word, the word that I looked up, and I've forgotten. And that's, of course, why in Link we highlight them in yellow, because you forget. It's all about forgetting. But with enough exposure, slowly the brain will learn. So if you stay with things that you enjoy doing, whether it be reading or listening or going out and talking to people, but the bulk of that is still going to be listening if you don't speak very well. If you're in conversation with someone, you don't have much to say, they have a lot to say, and getting it straight from a native speaker in a interactive situation is very, very positive. Speaking as well, I mean, I tend not to do it at first because I don't have so many words, but I know very well that even those 2 sessions with a native speaker on Link, I saw gaps, I saw words that I knew that I have, and I wasn't able to find them, and so being confronted with these gaps in my skills, it helps me notice things. It helps me notice, and the next time I came across those words in my reading, I made a particular point of noticing them. So all these different activities are helpful. And if you enjoy reading grammar, by all means read it. But if you don't enjoy reading grammar, you don't need to. Or you can limit it, as I do, to the occasional flip through to see what you might glean without trying to nail things down. So I just want to say that on this issue of, what happens when you get frustrated? Well, why are you frustrated? Don't worry about how fast you're progressing. Be confident that if you do things that you enjoy doing in the language, and if you stay with it, you will progress. You will progress faster if you do things that you enjoy doing than if you try to force yourself to do things that you don't enjoy doing. I have no scientific research to back that up, but I think that's a pretty common sense conclusion that I've drawn from watching people, because the vast majority of people who try to force themselves to do things that they don't enjoy don't end up progressing very quickly in the language. And those people that do enjoy what they're doing also make progress. So there you have it. How do you avoid getting frustrated? Don't even think about getting frustrated. Just do the things that you enjoy doing in the language. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.